Alright, so yeah, today I want to share my Instagram 2022 export settings with you guys that I use all the time to post high quality images on my page. So let's talk about that. Okay, so what's up and welcome back to another video on this channel, and I hope you had a fantastic day. And yes, if you want to post images on Instagram with the best possible image quality, you should do a couple of things in advance to avoid the situation that your image in the preview looks great, but as soon as you check it on Instagram, it just looks bad. And exactly that's why I want to share my step-by-step guide with you that I use all the time to be sure that my images won't lose a lot of quality as soon as I post them on Instagram. So let's talk about that. And the first step that we need to talk about is all about taking photos. What I want to say is that if you just take random pictures without caring about your camera settings, you limit your images before you even start to upload your photos. So this is extremely important to keep that in your mind when you're out there to take photos, and especially if you want to edit your pictures, because in this case I highly recommend to shoot and use raw files. And especially these raw files make it possible to have way more control if you edit your pictures. Because in the end they save a lot of details, and this information can be used to do all kind of stuff in your editing software. If you would use JPEG files instead, and if you start to edit these pictures, it is way more likely that you will run into problems, and in most cases if you start to edit these files they will lose a lot of their quality. And that's just because JPEG files are compressed files, so they don't save a lot of details that you can use to edit these pictures. So if you want to edit your pictures before you upload them to Instagram, I highly recommend to use raw files, or if you use any JPEG files, don't make any harsh adjustments, because this will make things way harder if you want to achieve a certain image quality. Another tip that we need to talk about is before you start to take photos, I highly recommend to clean your lenses. Because if your lens isn't clean, it can actually affect the image quality as well. So definitely avoid fingerprints, dust and all kind of stuff like that by simply cleaning your lens from time to time, and especially if you want to take photos for your Instagram feed. But that's it for the shooting aspect. Now let's talk about my editing workflow, and in most cases I start with the Instagram recommendations. Basically the Instagram recommendations are guidelines that you should follow to get the best results. Because if you don't follow these guidelines, the Instagram compression tool needs to do it for you, and in this case it is most likely that your picture will lose a lot of quality. So yeah, you definitely want to avoid that. And to get started, Instagram recommends a 4:5 picture ratio, and yes, you can simply crop your image in your editing app or software. For example, in Lightroom you can easily use the crop tool right here to select the 4:5 option and you are set. In the end it's actually really easy to do, so definitely do that before you upload your images to Instagram, just to avoid the problem that Instagram needs to crop the image for you, which will always affect the image quality a lot. My second tip here is all about the color correction, and since I'm using raw files I can do a lot to get the images that I want to have. In most cases I simply start with one of my presets that you can also check out in my shop if you click on the link in the first comment, and next I simply adjust some of these settings to get the fine-tuning right. But here's another tip that I always use, and the tip that I want to give you is to care about the size and sharpness. I highly recommend to give your photos a little sharpness boost to let your key elements stand out, and that is extremely important because everyone sees your image on a small screen on their phone, and that makes it harder to maintain all the details. So before you export your image, always double check your photo. Actually zoom out to make the image smaller on your screen to see if everything is fine. Otherwise try to adjust your setting until it looks great, especially on a smartphone screen. And since we already started to talk about export settings, let's talk about that next. And here I always use JPEG to compress my final edit all the way down, and this is really important now. I always use the highest quality. A couple of people actually say that they lower the output quality a little bit, but what I notice is that Instagram will compress the image again to make them as small as possible, so I don't want to lower the quality right in advance. Another setting that I use is the sRGB option right here, because most of the web browsers use that to display images. But I've read an article that Instagram supports the display P3 option now as well, so I will give it a try to see what I like the most. But mostly I would recommend to go with the sRGB option. And in the end this just works. Next let's talk about the picture size, and this is another step that you need to care about if you want to post the highest image quality on Instagram. And Instagram recommends to use at least the short edge with 1080 pixels for portraits, and for the landscape a long edge with 1080 pixels again. And yes, again, otherwise Instagram will do it for you, and that's something that we definitely want to avoid. So definitely be sure that you avoid any images that won't fit their guidelines. Of course it may require some more work, but I think it's worth it, and if you do it you shouldn't see any unexpected changes. But there's one last step that we need to talk about, and this is how you upload the image to Instagram. If you use your computer you won't won't have any problems, but if you use your phone to do that, you need to think about how you send the image to your phone. Because yes, in this case you need to avoid additional compression again. Because if you send the photo via email or messenger to your photo gets compressed again, and that leads to a lower quality. So instead, what I highly recommend is to use a cloud system, AirDrop, or simply connect your phone to your computer and import the files that you want to use to avoid this additional compression. As I started, I made this mistake a lot and I never knew why the image always got worse, but the reason was simply the additional compression, and it's super easy to avoid that. But yeah, that's my breakdown on how I post high quality images on my Instagram page. So, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're new here, don't forget to smash that subscribe button to stay updated for upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next video.